I'm Joey.T.Cartoon.P and you're watching the Cartoon Palooza. Remember when Enchanted came out? You know, it was that Disney flick that was a parody of the early princess movies. You know how all the critics fawned over it, saying that it was the perfect blend of comedy and hot?
I think Enchanted is a brilliant satirical take on the animated fairy tale musical, while also being a very sweet romantic comedy.
Enchanted? Oh my god! I could go on and on and on and on about how much I love this film. There's a couple of reasons why. The first, they combine the hand-drawn animation and the live action so beautifully. It's just like the way they did it in the olden days. And two, James Marsden wearing tight pants. Do I really need to say any more?
The fact that Disney actually made fun of itself by making this movie is pretty awesome, and the parody shows with all the tropes and everything, and not to mention that the story's pretty awesome actually. I kind of actually enjoyed the story, and the special effects were awesome too.
Yeah, I think this video is gonna get as many dislikes as my Jimmy Neutron review because I got problems with it. Dare I say it, I think this movie's a little overrated.
What?
Alright, just take it easy. Let me explain.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you over your similar dislike for Scott Pilgrim.
When this movie opened and I finally got around to seeing it, years before, another parody with heart came out called Elf. It managed to combine laughs with heart and has now worked its way into becoming a holiday tradition to watch. When I saw trailers to Enchanted, I thought they may as well call the movies Disney's We're Not Elf, and nobody would know the difference. We get a quirky fish out of water story where someone is taken out of her environment, which happens to be from a different realm of logic. Very original. Ah, yeah. That was lame.
He's an angry elf.
So our movie begins in a storybook traditionally animated not by in-house Disney animators. This was part of the aftermath of Disney's decision to go digital and booting off the traditional animation department. If anything, the only credit I can give to this film is making traditionally drawn animation relevant again, even if it's associating it to storybooks and children's fantasies. But I digress. Now here's something I want to address about this film, because the animated heroine comes from a world that, now let's be honest with ourselves, is a world comprised mostly of cliches from earlier Disney flicks up until the 1960s. Our heroine named Giselle is about to get married to the prince who up to that point has shared just as much screen time getting to know his character as the prince from every prince from every Disney animated movie made prior to 1960. Now trust me, they pretty much beat this point to death through the movie, reminding us that the character is the archetype for those films. Sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I'm moving my clicker to see how much time's left before this movie ends. So before our heroine is transported, her evil stepmother, played by Susan Sarandon, banishes her to the real world to keep her from stealing the crown, being fairest in the land, and having her stepdaughters marry the prince. Yeah, I think that about sums it up. Giselle is taken in by the early 20th century American gangster Meyer Lansky, and she learns that, well, let's go to the laundry list. His wife left him. He has a caring daughter. He is a workaholic / pessimist. And come on, we know he's gonna come around by the end of this film. I got an hour and a half to see this pan out with dated humor. Meyer Lansky doesn't need any help since we know he's gonna turn around by the end. Throw anybody a tragic backstory, loving child, and a corporate attire, and you have the humbug with a heart of gold. Oh, and you get a perk if you're dating Maureen. Is it me, or is it just a habit to start mooing every time she's on screen?
Moo with me.
But wait! Her evil stepmother is following her and sends her wormy henchman, played appropriately by Wormtail, to take on the form of a number of dated stereotypes to get her to eat a poisoned apple. While that goes on, Lansky has trouble convincing his girlfriend, played by Broadway actress superstar Idina Menzel, who I'm almost certain doesn't even get to sing a song in this movie, that Giselle is a friend and not another fling. I guess it's all said and good. If she pays the rent. So while she's in the real world, she gets to learn real world problems, right? Well, kind of. I mean, I get that by the end of the film she learns to accept that things don't always work out with pure hope and stuff. However, it becomes pretty easy for her to convince the real world to have a little faith with magic of her world, which is explained.
No, wait, scratch that. It isn't.
At least in Elf, we knew that Buddy had a hard time proving that he was from a magical world, making it believable for the other people's perspective to see that he was this idiot savant.
Santa's coming to town. Oh my God!
Giselle has little problem summoning CG rats and roaches or people to break out into choreographed song and dance.
How is there any contrast or juxtaposition to make this an interesting parody? If anything, it's turning more into a standard Disney flick.
Now people's reasoning is that, hey, it's Disney magic. That's how it works. Well, in her world. How does this make the real world any different from the magical world? Hell, New York doesn't even feel like New York and more like insert city for your movie here, city. Imagine how crazy it would be for the princess wound up in the New York featured in Botchki's movies. Now that I would pay money to see. Which in itself was how this movie was supposed to turn up. The director mentioned in an interview how the movie was supposed to be geared more towards adults.
You gotta wonder what happened along the way. Yeah, that makes sense.
Do I think that this is the worst family movie ever? Absolutely not. But it's definitely not one of the best. I do love James Baxter's animation in the beginning sequences and the end, and even admire James Marsden's performance as the prince the most. Note my lacking of caring to what his real name was. Probably because he was the closest to the Buddy character from Elf. They were all good actors with material I couldn't find myself laughing at. If you find it funny, that's fine. It just seems like a cheap jab to make jokes towards the first films that brought you to where you are in the entertainment business. You're better off looking forward to the future and making new movies while knowing where you came from. I don't think this movie does justice to that, and at best came 20 years late for the joke to have a zing to it.
So yeah, feel free to have a flame war in my comment section telling me how 100% wrong I am, because those are my 2 cents. Take it or leave it, because I'm forgetting about this movie. Now, I'm Joey.T.Cartoon.P, and thanks for watching this episode of the Cartoon Palooza.
My little friends, as we all sing a happy little working song. Merry little voices, clear and strong. Come and roll your sleeves up, so to speak, and pitch in. Cleaning crowd up in the kitchen as we sing along. To rill a cheery tune in the tub as we scrub a stubborn mildew stain. Like a hairball from the shower drain.